If you do not have clarity, you as an individual do not have clarity about who you are, what you're good at, what you want, that will scream off the page to me as a recruiter from your resume.
Mm.
It screams at me. It's so obvious to me. And so it's important. I just want people to understand that's not nothing. Having
Yeah.
that clarity is really the secret sauce to creating the thing, the resume, the interview answers, the LinkedIn profile, that's going to really push you in the position that you want to get to.
Hey there, it's Kristen Crockett, and you are listening to The Plastic Couch, a podcast to help you find clarity and confidence in your life. Most of us remember someone from back in the day with a couch they kept covered with plastic. It was meant to protect and preserve the couch for tomorrow, but the plastic was hot and uncomfortable, and it kept everyone from enjoying it. So what does the plastic represent for you in your life? Is it perfection, fear, or something else? And what are you preventing yourself from enjoying? Or better yet, from being? I'm your host, Kristen Crockett, and I'm here to help you with the tools to get clarity on your path to you and to help you see what's on the other side of the plastic. So today on the Plastic Couch podcast, we have Monica York, who is an executive recruiter and a career coach. And that's kind of introducing her in a really, shall we say, professional way. But if you talk to any of her clients, she is a complete rock star. She is the most amazing person ever. And she really transforms people's identity and lives. So how is that for an introduction, Monica York?
Oh my gosh. I say it with my chest. I'm so proud. I'm so excited to have that impact and know that my work is helping people change their lives, right? That's it for me. I'm good. I'm good. I know the assignment. I'm feeling my assignment.
Yes. And so I was introduced to Monica, and she began working with some of my clients. So some of the fellows that are in a year-long program growing into executive positions over the next 5 years. And I cannot even tell you all just how incredible their experience has truly been. So that is just a starting point for us. So, Monica, let's jump in when we talk.
Okay, I'm ready.
Well, let's jump in, and I just want to hear, tell us a little bit about how you got into executive coaching or executive recruiting, because you really do both, right?
That's right. That's right. I do. And
tell us, how did you jump into that?
Well, and it's kind of funny because my career as a recruiter started completely unexpectedly, because when I interviewed for my first position in a recruiting firm, I didn't know that recruiting was a thing. I didn't really understand what the recruiting industry was. I didn't know what recruiters did. It was kind of confusing to me that companies had to hire another organization to hire people for them. I didn't get any of that. And then a scant, almost 40 years later, I'm still working in that industry. And so my career began doing staffing and sourcing. And over the course of time, I just kind of evolved into a place where I'm working more with much essentially leaders, right? Working more specifically with leaders. I tell people that recruiting is like nursing. It exists in all shapes, forms, and fashions, and you can apply that trade however it best suits you. And so as an executive myself, when I'm working with other executives, I can bring my personal experience having done their work, right? I'm a leader too. I've been an executive. I've had to hire teams of 20 or 30. I've had to manage, I've had to fire people. I've had to change jobs. And so, essentially, as I began to be late in my career, that my affinity for those people in those positions, those are my tribe. That I understand your problems. I understand what you're dealing with. I know how to help you get from the position you're in to the position you want to get to. I understand how to evaluate you, as someone that also hired executives. So I kind of landed in the space of working with leaders because that's who I am. And it's also important for me personally. my experience rising into an executive level was not pretty, right?
So let's talk about that. Let's
Yeah,
jump into that.
yeah, yeah.
So it was not
It
pretty.
wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. I was in corporate America uh for all of my career. And I was working primarily in industry. So corporate America itself was primarily male driven. The industries that I spent most of my career recruiting in are primarily male driven. That's telecommunications, information technology. These are all male dominated spaces. And the staffing industry, which is where I spent a good portion of my career, is primarily male dominated. Very little diversity. And so, I've got the battle scars of being one of the few Black people and typically the only Black woman in a lot of the organizations where I worked and ultimately rose to leadership positions. I had the very good fortune of having a colleague who was initially my mentor. He taught me a lot of my skills in recruiting. After working with him for a year when I took my first recruiting job, I placed more people than anybody in the company I was at, right? Like he showed me how to do the work. He taught me how to leverage what are some of my innate qualities and skills. And so I was always successful. And thanks to him, he's the one that hired me for my first leadership role.
Mm.
Right. So I was killing it as an individual contributor, and recruiters are typically commission based. So I was happy to be in that space because I was doing well and making a lot of money. And he kind of came and said, listen, you know, we need you to come up and help us build a team and teach them how to do what you do, right? It's all the scale. And so he hired me into my first leadership position and I just excelled at that. But, once I got into that space, again, you're not judged on necessarily what you're producing, right? You really are navigating with people that it's really more about who you are. And not many people really could really associate with who I was because I was significantly different than the other kinds of people who were my colleagues.
So let's
And
talk about this difference. Let's talk about this difference, right? So when you say that you were totally different from them, let's talk about that journey for you in terms of authenticity, of being who
yeah,
you are, because the plastic couch is all about, ripping off the plastic. So what was that? What was the plastic for you in your own career or life journey?
correct. Yeah. It really was that for when I'm talking specifically within that corporate space. For me in my life journey, I recognized at a very early age that my perspective on the world was different from most people I encountered. And I've thought a lot about why is that? How does that happen? And I do think some of it is, you are who God made you. And I'm a Christian. I believe I am who God made me. But I also had a unique experience that at one point I counted the number. And by the time I graduated college, I had lived in 17 houses
Mm.
and two different countries. And I think it was three different states. So when I say that I was different, what I began looking in hindsight, what that means for me is essentially I kept being placed in new circumstances.
Right. Okay.
And I was typically the different one because I'm the new one. I'm always the new one. And even though the places I went may not have been as homogenous as I experienced it, that is what I experienced,
Mhm.
right? Because when I got there, I was always the newest and the most different. And so what I realized that I'll say taught and equipped me to do is to be the chameleon, right? I quickly learned that the easiest path for me, girl, just blend on in. You don't have to spend all your time explaining stuff to people. You don't have to, like it's exhausting. Even as a child, to me, it was exhausting. Well, how do you talk like that? And where are you from? And where'd you get those clothes? Because when you're a kid, you notice, well, they're wearing different kind of stuff that I'm wearing.
Right.
Right. And when you move from state to state, sometimes that's more pronounced than if you just moved, from neighborhood to neighborhood. And so I think I adopted this just innate. I'm not here to explain. I'm just, just I don't have the energy to explain to all these people and answer all these questions. I'm just trying to make a friend and get along and get in where I can fit in. So for me, I think the plastic is that was really and I use the term survival very loosely. It wasn't something that I felt traumatized by, but I remember being very aware of it. I remember even as a child being very cognizant of it. And so moving into leadership in corporate America, I leveraged that, right? But what I found to be a challenge in corporate America is they're not necessarily telling you what they want you to be,
Mm.
right? Like sometimes you get tripped up because you think you know, and then you realize, oh shoot, that wasn't right. Yeah. And so I struggled a little bit because I also find, corporate America is competitive. And so it was hard for me to find people who were willing to help me understand and know it. Because most of the people I was, congregating and associating with, they worked for the same company as me, but we were competing, right? Like I wanted to be the best recruiting manager. They wanted to be the best recruiting. So it was a little bit of a difficult, I remember, several instances that come to mind for me that I think, I wish someone had just told me. Like I literally made mistakes, they weren't career ending mistakes, but they were definitely mistakes that I know impacted my reputation, how people perceived me. And I really think that at the end of the day, that's probably okay because in those instances I was acting authentically and it kind of is what it is. But at the time, I do know that in some ways it did limit and maybe impact my career path and some relationships that I. So ultimately, I just gave that up. And what I mean by gave that up is ultimately I gave up the trying to do it like I ought to and just began to do it like I'm gonna. Like
Right.
I'm just like I was tired of explaining as a kid. I got to be all the way grown with a whole life and I had some other pressing things in my life that my work was no longer my primary focus. And it was like, look, this is just how I'm going to have to be at work because I have to expend all this other energy on my growing family, my marriage, my social, my civic volunteerism. These things, they're time consuming too.
Right.
And so I found that as I moved in my career, I really kind of just released that because it began to be a drain. And lo and behold, I realized I can really be successful just how I am.
Right.
I,
And that's the thing, Monica, like that right there is the thing, is that
that's the thing.
so many people really feel that they have to be like others, or they've got to compete, or they've got to move in a different way. And when you
Yeah.
start to really step inside of yourself and really take up space inside of your body and inside of who you are,
Yeah,
life just begins to flow differently.
it really does. It really does. And that's exactly what I try to help people that I'm working with. First of all, they have to accept it. And there's also what I also recognize is it's the challenge to define it.
Yes.
Because once you've right, and I'm sure in your work you experience a lot, once you've spent so much time morphing yourself into the who you think you need to be or want to be or should be or whatever it is, whatever the word is. When you try to be yourself, you sometimes you forgot.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't even really know what that is. You don't know what that
Yeah.
looks like.
You erased it. You
Yes.
erased it. You kind of erased it from your short-term memory. And you have to really dig a little deeply to go back and find it. And then for me in my trade, I help people say it, put it out there in a way that it is marketable. Because my personal experience and the experience of a lot of the people that I work with is there's a home for you. It's not like authentic Monica is lonely. I'm not. Right? Like I authentic Monica found a great place to work. Authentic Monica started her own organization and is successful, been doing that, what, 7 years? I don't even 8 years, right? So the lesson that I learned myself is a lesson I try to help people push them down that path because to your point, it first of all, it's just easier.
Yep.
It's
It's
definitely more
so
comfortable,
much less stress, right?
much less stress,
Yeah.
and then you have time to really focus on being the best of who you really are.
Yeah.
instead of faking the best of who you're not.
Correct.
It,
Yeah.
right? So you really can pour some energy into well, this is me and what are my strengths and how do I keep growing that? Right? Like that's kind of where looking back, I feel like I wish someone had told me that because I wasted a lot of time. And even though I was I was successful. Went on all the year-end country trips. I was killing my numbers, right? Like,
Yeah.
that was that. Oh, I did that. I did that. I have recruiters now who still attribute me for their success in their career because I showed them how to do it. I have all that success stuff. I have that stuff, but I didn't enjoy it in the sense that I really wasn't passing through that phase of my life as the real great Monica, right? I really was the fakey fake. And so I didn't really enjoy it. And I often think about what did I really miss out on?
Mm.
Right. I know that I don't know what it is, and I don't regret it. It is what it is. It's water under the bridge. But I do know that I probably missed out on some things. And I'm pretty committed that I'm not missing out on anything else.
I
Um,
love that because I think, when we are outside of ourselves and we don't even know who we are, and we
that's
are
right.
operating by this blueprint that we think that we should operate by. What I believe is that, like, you miss out on authentic connections, you miss out
Yes.
on fulfillment. So you've got this incredible job that you are killing, right?
Yeah.
But what's the internal? What's happening
Right.
inside? Where's the joy and fulfillment that you feel from literally being yourself?
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
That's right. Which to me is way more valuable than any of the material success I had.
Yeah.
You know, like because I can't even recapture that. I can continue to make money. Right. I can continue to make money. I can
Yes.
continue to be successful, but I really can't ever go back and recapture that. So, it is kind of water on the bridge, but that's how when I began working with executives in their kind of career transitions, and that's really the place I focus, you, right? You and a lot of other really well qualified people help people excel in their work, right? How to smash what you're doing. What I realized is for me, the area of expertise that I can contribute to people's success is helping them change careers because that is a whole process and industry and sector that there's so much mystique around. But for me, it's old hat. Like, there's no mystique to me.
Yeah.
But that's when I realized that that's really a space that a lot of people could really use my help speaking into to help them navigate that more successfully in terms of having the outcome that they desire and not just landing another job, or, people are really just kind of afraid of that. And they should be because it's hard. But I do think if you have the right understanding and you have the right skills, you really can navigate that successfully just like you would any other area of your life.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I started with the executive coaching around career transitions because people want to do that. They need to do that successfully. And see, when you're an executive, the people that I work with, they have some pretty clear paths that they want to get to. But if they don't know how to navigate that career transition, it becomes very elusive in spite of their success,
Right.
And I mean, in spite of the fact that they have a long history of success and very knowledgeable and, well-heeled and schooled and educated, and then they just frustrated because they just can't figure out how to get from where I am to where I want to be. And to me,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
such a disservice.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that because essentially I always say that you and I are the same. We do the same thing, but on the
Yes,
other, like, opposite sides, like, and in
that's
different
right.
ways, right? Because
Yep.
it's not just that I help people in their role because I'm a transformational coach. That role, they may have outgrown their role, right? They
Yes.
may, it might be time for them to leave. It might be
Yep.
time for them to look for a different role within that organization, right?
Yep.
Or to actually understand their strengths so they can tap into what they have and
Yes.
expand in their own role, right?
In their
So a
own
lot
role.
of
Yep.
different things. It's the same thing. Transition, transformation, right? But,
Yep.
both of us do this thing really well, which is to help people truly understand their gifts their strengths, their skills, their experience, and to represent it to them
Yeah.
in a way that makes them feel seen. So let's go back and talk about how you do that, because I've had clients that have worked with you, and it's like talking to them after they have worked with you. It's like sunshine has poured through them, and they have like they finally feel seen based on how you have helped them to just really shift their resume and kind of put
Yeah.
everything that they are onto their resume.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that makes me feel so happy because the way that I do that, there's a few things I think that allow me to help people do that in a way that is valuable to them. One is I bring a very pragmatic talent acquisition lens, right? Because sometimes the struggle, to your point, is, do I know my strengths?
Right.
What are they? Why are they meaningful? How can they help me? But from my perspective, where I always sit is, and how can that help me get the job I want? Right? Like,
Correct.
because
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like from a very pragmatic standpoint, because if you can't articulate that story in a way that the recruiter, the hiring manager, board can receive it, even if you understand it, it's not going to work for you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, I agree with you 135%. I want them to understand it. I want them to accept it. I want them to implement it strategically, but you still gotta sell it. You have to sell it to
Correct.
somebody, right? You have to sell it to, and even if you're an entrepreneur, you got to sell it to your clients. You have to sell it. So I do think the turnkey that I offer that helps people feel more confident is I can then tell them how to make it into the tool that is going to drive them in the way they want to go. That to me is, and that just comes from my experience as a recruiter, right? I mean, I tell people I've read more resumes than people that you've encountered, in the last 10 years. And it's just a tool of my trade, right? Like
Correct.
that's
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
do. That's what I know. And I do think that being able to instill some I tell everyone what I give them is I have the give them the I mean teach them the fish mentality.
Mm-hmm.
So when people work with me, I'm not writing your resume.
Correct.
I gave that up years ago. And by the way, if you're smart, you don't want me to, because then every time you want a resume, you have to come back and see Monica or
Right.
somebody like Monica to make your resume, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So instead, I help people develop evergreen skills so that whenever they need a resume, they feel confident that they can craft a resume that does what they want it to do, which is get them the interview for the job that they're excited about. That's what I help people do. And for some people, it's such a revolutionary idea. Like, oh my gosh, you mean I actually feel, because nobody feels confident writing their resume. I mean, think about it. Over your career, how many times have you written a resume? Like 4, right? Like, think about it. Even you, right? Whoever's listening, think about over the course of your career, how many times have you written your resume?
Yeah.
I don't know, 5, right? So no one feels confident about this. And there's no reason that you should. You haven't done it much. Not to mention that in talent acquisition, the trends change, what's fashionable changes, industry differences are important. There's all this stuff you have to think about. Who has time to think about that while you're busy being successful at your career?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
So that's
It's true.
why I think people feel like, oh my gosh, I finally get it. I finally feel like when I get ready to write a resume, I really know what I'm doing. Because none of us likes to operate feeling like we don't know what we're doing. Like that, it's kind of like me trying to fix my sink. I know this is not going to work out.
And that's the thing. So I am so big on delegation and staying in my zone of genius, right? If if
Yes.
if because when we step outside of that and we're doing something that does not like it's not our thing. It doesn't come easy to us.
Yep.
It can be draining, it can be tiring, it can be like anxiety ridden. Because
Right.
especially if you're in a situation where you ultimately want to leave and you really want a resume to attract the position that you want, then you got to get it right.
Yep.
And so, who
I'm
better
riding
to
on this.
go to than somebody who has seen thousands of resumes? Yeah,
Gosh, right. Exactly. Yeah. I think that is what I think is the kind of relief and the, kind of decompression, when I'm working with your clients who, by the way, I think are the real rock stars in the world. But that, I mean, the work they do to me is just like mind-blowing and phenomenal and like generationally impactful. It's incredible.
it's so
But
true. Yes.
oh my gosh, like when I every time I think I'm like, wow, there's just and they do it with such passion and such zeal for it. It's just that I think that they are just fabulous, I'm really pleased and honored to actually help them because as far as I'm concerned, the more they can grow and keep doing, the better our whole world's going to be, right?
It's so true. Yes.
It's just exponentially impactful. So I think that's why and my clients, other clients outside of yours, they just feel this relief. Like, oh my gosh, just thanks so much because now I get it. These are all smart people. I tell people all the time, I'm not a rocket scientist. But at the end of the day, my industry is pretty simple, but it's just kind of shrouded. I'm not a rocket scientist. There are people that have way more complex and detailed, but there is some science to talent acquisition. And it's the kind of thing that you don't pay any attention to it until you need it. And then it's usually at a critical juncture. So there is that added on stress and anxiety around it. So
So, but
that's
I'm gonna listen. I gotta push back on that because I feel like you are a rocket scientist, and let me
no,
say
no,
it like this. Let me say it like this. Genius is always blind, right? We
well,
always like it's no one ever believes that they are as great as they are. And Monica, you are, right?
oh, thank you.
You are, but it's
Start
also
crying.
this thing that, it comes naturally to you. So, and for anybody who has listened to the Human Design podcast, these, when we talk about our profile, when we get really into our profile, these are our twos, which are people who naturally just they don't understand the strengths inside of them. Like they just think
Mm,
that it's just everybody can do what I can do, right? This is nothing.
mm-hmm,
Everybody can do what I can do. But here's the thing is that sometimes our experience and what we have gone through and where we have been and how we have transformed inside of ourselves, it's the perfect combination of
mm,
things to transform somebody's life. And
yeah.
that is essentially what you do. So,
Well, thank you. And I receive that. I receive that. I do know that when I began recruiting, I was amazed at how easy it was for me
yeah.
because I saw a lot of people try to recruit and they starved because we were straight commission and they couldn't make any money. And so I do receive and accept that the actual recruiting muscles, the competencies to be a recruiter, I was born with those. I didn't it fit me like a glove. Once I understood what it was, it fit me like a glove and I was like, wow, who knew? I didn't even know this was. I wish I had known to try to learn to do this. I didn't even know this was a thing to learn to do.
Yeah, because
So
it's
I,
like it requires you to be curious. It requires you to know people really well. It
yeah,
requires you to have some type of intuition as well,
yes,
right? To
absolutely, yes,
understand like if
yes,
people are saying yes, but their body's saying no, right?
that's right. Yes, all of that. Yep, yeah, yeah. And so I received that, and thank you for saying that. I do realize that what I am able to do is not something that everyone can do. But I also realize that the things that I teach people to do are not hard to learn. They're not hard for people to learn. It's just that people they've never heard it presented to them in that way. I think that's what I mean
Correct.
when I say it's rocket science. I'm not sharing anything that's going to, you don't have to get a degree to learn this. It really is just understanding the landscape of talent acquisition and understanding yourself, to your point, your strengths.
Yeah.
How are you going to sell that? How do you tell that story? How do you really capture your success in a way that's going to make it compelling to the people you want to compel to hire you?
Yeah. So this is really an important place for us to talk about. Listen, get ready, y'all, because Monica and I we are getting together to launch. We are launching an initiative. It is called Ascend. It's a 3-day event, which you get both of us, right?
What could be better?
And, Monica is really absolutely brilliant at helping you take your strengths and putting them onto the paper, helping you look at your profile, your leadership, your professional brand, and really attracting the position, like you said, that you are excited to go to
Yeah,
on a Monday morning, right?
that's right. That's right.
My genius is all about helping you understand exactly what your strengths are, right? So I'm doing the pre-work with you. We are talking about exactly what your strengths are, how to find them out, how to really understand exactly who you are so you can
Mhm.
work with Monica, put them onto paper. And so
Yep,
I'm helping you with that, helping you talk about your
absolutely.
career story, what it all is, and Monica is helping you package it all
Yep,
together so that you can attract that job. So,
absolutely. And let me say why that is so critically important, Kristen. And I've said this a million times. If you do not have clarity, you as an individual do not have clarity about who you are, what you're good at, what you want, that will scream off the page to me as a recruiter from your resume.
mm,
It screams at me. It's so obvious to me. And so it's important. I just want people to understand that's not nothing. Having
yeah,
that clarity is really the secret sauce to creating the thing, the resume, the interview answers, the LinkedIn profile that's going to really push you in the position that you want to get to.
yes,
It all has to start. Like, we're not going to run by that. That is the thing that you have to do first. Because if not, when I see a resume of someone that's clear about what they want to do, that's obvious to me. And when you're not clear, that's really obvious to me.
yep,
And as a recruiter, I want to work with people that are clear about what they want to do
yep,
because that mitigates the risk for me. So let's be if you want to know what motivates recruiters, it's people that know what they want to do because it makes it easy for me to say, is this what you want to do? Yes or no? Versus, well, I don't know. Let me talk to the manager. Let me talk to my wife. Let me ask my rabbi. Listen, I right? Because as a recruiter, I want to work with people that want this job that I have.
right.
I'm judged on. So if you don't know, now you're a risk to me. So that piece right there, the part that you are going to be, to me, it's invaluable. Invaluable.
Yeah, absolutely. And so clarity is super, super important for all aspects, right? Because we talked about it earlier, like you exert a lot of energy when you're not clear on who you are. It's a lot of anxiety, it's a lot of energy for the people around you. And so once you find out exactly who you are and what lights you up, it's like again, those doors of the universe open up, you can
So true.
walk through and everything else aligns with it to put you in the position where you need to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And your decision making is so easy, right? Why spend time talking to recruiters about jobs that you don't want?
Yep.
You'll never get that 10 minutes back, right? So to me, that clarity just really makes the whole process more efficient and invariably more successful,
Right. So
right?
I
So yeah.
So I think that you and I are very similar in terms of our backgrounds, where you went to you talked about going to a lot of different states, moving around a lot. And for me, I was always the only anytime that I went someplace, right? So it's the only in, my individual classrooms where I was the only
Hmm.
Black person, let's say in an English class or in a
Yes, ma'am.
history class, right? Not
Yeah,
necessarily in my grade, but almost all day throughout the school day.
that's it.
And, being the only woman in a lot of situations as well,
Hmm. Hmm.
or the only person who's going to speak out. But the other thing about that is that it also taught me who I am and who I'm not.
Yeah.
Because again, I spent a lot of time trying to be something that I wasn't. And I am all about authenticity. And Monica, you are too. And
I
so
am.
it's a perfect match for people to
Mm,
really, attract that specific role or career
that's right.
that says, this is me. This is
Hmm.
me, and I
Hmm.
feel lit up
Hmm.
versus
Hmm.
us helping you get a job that's going to pay the
Why?
bills. But, come Sunday night, you're like, oh my God,
Yeah,
I
like shoot me
cannot believe
now.
I got to go to work.
Correct. Right. Right. Exactly. And to me, and I know, just working with you and knowing you and experiencing you, you're going to get some authentic feedback.
Yes.
So when you sign up to participate in Ascend, come prepared to receive some authentic feedback
Yes.
because I'm not here to fool you. I'm not here to fool you, right? Kristen's not here to fool you. Now we're here to help you, and you're going to get feedback that's going to help you. So just be prepared for some authentic feedback because I do think that's another reason why I gave up writing resumes. Because when you work with a resume writer, they're really just trying to paint a picture for you. And it's not really in their best interest to give you any authentic feedback. They're just going to paint the picture of what you want them to paint. That's what you're paying them for.
Right.
Right. And so it's a little bit different when you're working with a coach that's really trying to help you understand the picture you should be trying to paint. That's a different thing. That's a different thing. So to your point about authenticity, we want everyone to find their authentic self and be happy and comfortable there. And we're going to be authentic in helping you get there.
Yes,
And you'll
absolutely.
thank us later. You'll thank.
Yes. So we've got 3 days with you, 3 different weeks with you, where we're also going to have hot seat coaching. And what that means is this is like workshop style where we are talking about it. We are, having you all discuss things. And then in addition to that, we have time for you all to say, hey, I got a question. Can you help
Right.
me with X, Y, and Z? So we are actively coaching on the calls as well. So listen, I am so excited to be working with you.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I feel like, in 18 months, we'll see how we've changed the world, right? Like
Yes.
that's what I know is going to be coming down the pipe is there are the people that come through this are going to be able to really push their own needle, which, wherever they land, and this, and I think everyone knows this inherently. If you are in a place where you're thriving and growing, you're just going to do better, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I just know that wherever our clients land, is they're the better off for it. The organizations are the better off for it because you show up with your authentic, happy self. You're excited about your work. You're bringing all your great creativity and ideas and enthusiasm and energy. Nothing can go wrong with that. Like that's going to help you drive the
Correct.
outcomes that you want in the work that you do, not to mention your own life.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm super excited about it.
And I think the best thing too is like this signals to yourself that this is an investment in you. It is
Yeah.
something that when you understand who you are, you are your authentic self, you attract people who are authentic as well. It's almost like that light switch goes on and it never goes off because you can't
Yes.
stop being who you are, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so it's an important moment. And, just like you said, like we are also creating ripple effects for you because this is going to be an investment that actually really touches the rest of your life. It's not just your career, but it's also your personal life as well,
That's right.
the people around you. And if you have kids or, nephews or godchildren,
That's
they're
right.
all going to be able to see how lit up you are in your
Mhm.
career, which is like the
Mhm.
most amazing thing ever. So,
It is. It is. And I feel like when people operate in their strengths, it just, to your point, it just keeps on giving.
yeah,
Like it just kind of keeps on giving. It gives in the work that they do. It gives in the people that they serve. It gives in their family. It gives in their social circles. It just is never ending. And I do think that for people that really take it to heart, you really will develop the ability to kind of navigate your career and life in a way that you may not have ever done before.
yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So it's exciting.
Yeah. So Monica,
Exciting.
listen, I wanna thank you so much for being a guest on the Plastic Couch
My
podcast.
pleasure. Yeah.
We will,
So glad to have you.
yeah, definitely. And we will definitely drop the link for you in the show notes, as well as you can go to kristencrockett.com for more information. But
Hmm.
aside from that, Monica, tell people where they can find you.
Yes, absolutely. So my company name is actually Matriarch Solutions. I am Matriarch Solutions on LinkedIn and Facebook. You also can go to matriarchsolutions.com and click on Monica York and learn all about my executive coaching and executive recruiting. And I'm looking forward to getting to know more of you and looking forward to continue to changing the world.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So this is an example of two women who are lifting each other up. That is like the most important thing for me to be able to collaborate with you and your incredible skills. So
Go ahead.
Ascend starts November 14th. We will see you again on November 21st and then another session on December 5th. So we cannot wait to see you. So thank you to everybody who is listening. And if this was
Yeah,
helpful, definitely please feel free to share this with another person in your life.
absolutely.
So,
Thank you, Kristen.
yeah, thank you, Monica.